what we have in front of us are three complementary reform measures that we've brought forward after weeks of consultation with community leaders, with organizations, within folks throughout San Diego County, to arrive at what I believe is a powerful step forward for us as a county to take to acknowledge the very real concerns of the community. Certainly at the end of May, in the aftermath of the murder of Mr. Floyd, we saw tremendous protests, the likes of which we have not seen certainly in my lifetime. But it wasn't just about that one isolated incident. The cries from the community were for us to substantively and seriously address and take to heart the systematic racism that's been prevalent in our country for hundreds of years. And the community has demanded that we reevaluate and re-look at everything that we do in a new light, with an eye towards equity, with an eye towards racial justice, with an eye towards tackling inequities. And so after weeks and weeks of meetings, we've come forward with three proposals that I believe, again, are a positive step forward that our county can take to be on the path to a more perfect union, to recognize that the demands of the community are real and that we have it within our power to address their concerns. We have it within our power to make our county a better place, and we have it within our power today to show a clear signal that we're willing to take this positive step forward. The first item that we will consider is around mobile crisis response teams. The historic lack of mental health services throughout the United States has frankly resulted in law enforcement officers having to serve as first responders to almost all behavioral health crisis issues. If it is a violent situation or the individual is a danger to themselves or someone else, then of course it would have to be law enforcement that responds. But the reality is law enforcement is really the only crisis response available for individuals who are experiencing a mental health or substance use crisis. The reality is trained clinicians who do this as their profession, as their job, would be much better ones to respond. This idea is not new. It's certainly been around for a long time. Many states have long-standing networks of mobile crisis response teams. The state of New York, Texas, Michigan have all adopted these policies, and we can learn a great deal from what they've done in terms of our implementation. Here in California, many counties are ahead of us as well. Los Angeles, Contra Costa, Ventura have all moved forward with similar type proposals and ideas. Mobile crisis response teams are also used in a strategy in multiple other countries, both Australia, Canada, and others. And there have been countless studies that cite the effective outcomes of mobile crisis response teams in reducing hospitalizations and increasing connections to services. Here in our own county, we've certainly expended considerable energy and effort around this issue and around beginning the steps to move forward to this. I want to recognize District Attorney Summer Steffen for her leadership on the issue of mobile crisis response teams and creating a strategy to improve criminal justice response to individuals with mental illness. In her blueprint for mental health reform, a strategic new approach addressing the intersection of mental health, homelessness, and criminal justice that she put out in February of last year, she outlined a number of strategies with mobile crisis response teams, and in part being a foundation of a better way to address this crisis. I know Supervisor Jacob has been a champion of this issue and actually mentioned it in her State of the County speech as something that our county needs to adopt. And as a Board of Supervisors, we unanimously approved well over a year ago a pilot program to try out this concept in North County. Due to unforeseen circumstances with citing a location for a community-based crisis stabilization center, the implementation 12 months later continues to be delayed. And so what we are bringing forward here today is an idea long championed by so many people in so many counties, in so many countries, in so many states, with members of our own board in support of it. But what we bring forward today is not to just try it out, but to adopt it. We know that it works. The evidence supports it. A recent study showed that people with untreated mental illness are 16 times more likely to lose their life during a police encounter than civilians approached or stopped by law enforcement. And I think this is a testament to the reality that we're asking law enforcement to do something that is not their job. And if we can have trained clinicians who have the training, the expertise, the time, the patience, I think that we can get a much better outcome. We also know in 2018, throughout San Diego County, law enforcement responded to over 54,000 mental health related calls. That's 150 calls a day throughout our region. We've done great work as a county in significantly increasing our psychiatric emergency response teams, and those still play a role, because if the call involves a crime or a violent individual, then it would be law enforcement with a PERT clinician who would respond. But we need to have a different option for those situations where it is appropriate. And that is what we are bringing forward today, is the ability to have mobile crisis response teams that are detached from law enforcement, that can respond most appropriately. And we have the opportunity today to move forward in this regard. Now, it will be a lot of work. It is have to set up workforce, you have to set up procedures and protocols. We have to work to create an alternate number that people can call for a non-emergency response where one of these teams could be deployed. We have to work with our 911 dispatchers about how they might be able to screen calls that would be more appropriate for these, and work with law enforcement in the event they secure a situation and secure a scene, they can then call to divert these. And so there are multiple avenues and approaches by which we can begin to get these deployed. But today we are voting on a recommendation to take the necessary steps to expedite the implementation of county-wide mobile crisis response times, to create a helpline utilizing existing access or crisis line, or perhaps working with 211 if possible, to allow the community to request a mobile crisis outreach team when needed. Launch an outreach campaign to educate the community about mobile crisis outreach teams, and make changes to the Health and Human Services budget to fund countywide mobile crisis response teams. I would add a fifth recommendation, to have our District Attorney, Summer Stephan, involved in the development of this program. Given her history and work with this issue, we certainly want to make sure her perspective is heard and engaged and at the table, along with Dr. Bergman and our Health and Human Services team that would be deploying this throughout our region. And again, this is an opportunity for us to take a step forward in investing in our resources in ways that will get better outcomes, that will de-escalate situations, and then will provide individuals the access to the most appropriate level of care they need. And I request my colleagues' support for this item. And I believe District Attorney Summer Stephan is here and would like to speak as well, Mr. Chair.